Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is freedom. But before we get started, let's just take a minute to settle in and be present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it and feel the life force coursing through your body with all that oxygen enlivening your cells and moving through your bloodstream. And exhale any tension in your neck, in your shoulders, in your jaw, in your back. And let's take another deep breath in through your nose. Hold it and imagine that it's just wonderful sparkling light moving throughout your being and beyond into the world, connecting you. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension. And now let's just gently place our palms together and softly rub your fingers against your palms, softly, softly, so that you feel that tingling in your fingers and in your palms, and the deliciousness of that physicalness that we are in this world as we move through life. So, welcome, and good morning, Jorge, and good morning, Dido. Welcome, welcome, and good morning to everyone else. Welcome. I'm so glad to have you here. We're going to talk about freedom today, and what is freedom really? And this conversation was inspired through a conversation that I had with a client when we were talking about freedom and justice, and we were actually speaking about the prison system and talking about reforms and what freedom looks like. And it brought to mind to me the book Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was a survivor of the Holocaust, and talking about being able to experience freedom even within that environment, even within one of the most oppressive things we could possibly imagine in terms of oppression, that even within that kind of context, we have the capacity for freedom. And also in this conversation, I got to remember, remember that in terms of my values, freedom is at the top. And it's interesting because I do this values exercise with my clients where we go in and we explore what their hierarchy of values is, and in identifying those values, what is provided. And I've spoken about values and the importance of being aware of your values, but what is provided is a North Star, a compass by which you can guide yourself through life and through decisions and through prioritizing, and really find ways in which to honor yourself by identifying and respecting and being in alignment with your values. So for me, consciousness is number one. And what I realize about consciousness for me is that it's a path to freedom. That the ultimate freedom is awakening, being present, uh, being independent of mind and heart. And we can achieve this experience of freedom regardless of our circumstances. And why is that? Because freedom's an inside job. Yes, there are circumstances that are oppressive. There are circumstances where we could easily feel victimized and would be justified in feeling victimized. However, where is the freedom in being a victim? There is none. There is none. And where is the power in being a victim? There is none. And so where do that kind of power and that kind of freedom reside? They reside within. They reside within based on the stories we tell ourselves, based on the way that we choose to think, the way that we focus our attention and intention. And one of the richest paths to that level of freedom from circumstance that I am aware of, and I've spoken of this many times too, and I'm sure it's not new to you, but gratitude. Gratitude is a really profound and powerful path to freedom, because as we are grateful for our lives, we free ourselves from the notion or the predilection to being a victim or feeling like a victim. So this move toward freedom, it was interesting in the conversation about prison reform. We just entertained what it would look like if the prisoners had an ongoing program of mindfulness and meditation, and to be able to find the place of inner peacefulness and that place of expansiveness within. And then we expanded our conversation to include the wardens and the guards in the prison systems. And can you imagine what kind of transformation would take place if the administrators and all the officials and all the people that were enforcing the prison system were to be a part of a mindfulness and meditation practice. And then beyond that, we started looking at the police forces and what a difference it could make if that were a required or I think required would be okay, to have a required practice of mindfulness and meditation ongoing for the officers. It would shape the way that they interact with their role, I believe, in a very profound way. And I'm sure you've heard of the studies where people have meditated or prayed and in a group, and in proximity to that group for an extended proximity, there was a reduction in crime rates and all kinds of other remarkable things that happened. So what if we were to introduce this kind of practice and mindset into our institutions? Dido, thank you for posting the title for the book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. That's in the notes here. And Jorge says neuroplasticity. Exactly. So we get to change our experience based on how we change our thinking. And then Dido says, I believe that at least prisoners in India are encouraged to practice Vipassana meditation with powerful results. That's awesome. I didn't know that it was implemented anywhere. It would make sense that it's implemented in India for sure. So can I just imagine how perpetrators of crime and the people who are imprisoned and the people who imprison others and who take care of those prisons, or who are influential. Just imagine what the world could be if we were to make a shift into such a paradigm where we all were encouraged to be focusing our intention on mindfulness. It would be a miraculous transformation, I believe. And I know that there are lots and lots of groups that are doing meditation, and lots of people who are bringing mindfulness into corporate settings. And that's super powerful too, to be having more and more people on the planet finding a place of centeredness and awareness and connection. I believe that what we call evil is really a lack of love or a disconnection from love and connection. And when we aren't present to our connection with one another, when we're not present to love, it gives us the capacity to do truly evil things that are just completely disconnected and horrible. And so as we pursue this path to freedom, it is a path to peace as well through the awakening. So it's not material possessions that'll give us freedom. We talk about being financially free. So many people have the objective to be financially free. And although money may be a part of that, having enough money to meet your needs and beyond, we have different criteria, different degrees of wealth that would represent financial freedom. However, no matter how much money you have, true financial freedom resides within as well, as does all freedom. But with money, particularly, so many people who have so much money are completely at the effect of it, where they're in fear of losing it, or they're consumed by how to manage it or how to make more of it, and that is not freedom of any sort, that nor is it financial freedom. And freedom of thought and freedom of being are the ultimate freedoms. And with that in mind, the freedom of thought, we're experiencing a time that is, well, we know that this is an unprecedented time in history, but we're also experiencing a time where our freedom to information, like true information, is being shackled a bit, where there's more and more censorship happening. And many of us don't know about it because we don't know what we don't know. But there are dissenting opinions or ideas that are being censored. And when we think of freedom of speech, and this is a really important thing for right now in this moment, when we think of freedom of speech, the ACLU has defended speakers of hate speech for their freedom of speech. And why would they do such a thing? Because without the freedom to speak, if we censor, and this is such a hairy topic, because I don't support hate speech any more than the next person. And as we censor one aspect of speech, how do we defend another? So I'm not sure. I really am not sure if it's an all or nothing thing where you get to censor nothing and then that leaves room for hate speech, or we then have the ability to censor anything. And if we can censor anything, then that means that we can censor anything that challenges the pervading political will or the pervading uh, paradigm, the pervading beliefs about certain things. And what I'm actually speaking about specifically here is there is a lot of censorship happening right now related to COVID and related to vaccines and the efficacy of them, the safety of them. And there's a lot of information out there that has been pulled from YouTube or pulled from Amazon or pulled from the news channels and Facebook. And we need to be aware of these things, and it's a challenge because if something's being censored, you don't know what you don't know. So how do you find out more information? And there's Brian Rose of London Real is working to get information, make information available that has been being censored. And I'm not advocating everything that's represented in his channel or on his platform. However, I have listened and I have opened my mind to understand what might be going on beyond what's available to us. And I'm not talking vast conspiracy theories. I'm talking about being able to have access to dissenting opinions, and that is the core of our democracy, is to be able to have our freedom of expression, freedom of speech. And this is being threatened in this moment of time. And I invite you to explore this and look into it and draw your own conclusions. I'm not trying to push any kind of agenda here other than our freedom of speech and our rights to be able to have dissenting opinions, and to, as consumers, be able to educate ourselves thoroughly on all sides of an issue. And it's just such a crazy time right now with the notion or all the conversation from every side about fake news. And um, it's really, whew, it's a very thorny path to try to tread, because if we don't limit, for instance, hate speech, and Dido says in Britain, hate speech is against the law. In the US, freedom of speech has been considered more important. And so I guess what we have to look at is, what is the metric for hate speech? And how do we regulate it? Who gets to decide what hate speech is? And who gets to decide what is good for people to know and what is bad for people to know? Who gets to decide uh, what side of an issue should prevail? It gets to be very thorny, because as we start regulating speech, it's a slippery slope to regulating speech according to special interests. And that is what is occurring right now to a certain degree with regard to certain uh, medical solutions for things. And that includes alternative healing modalities, and it's happened with alternative energy, and it's happened with all kinds of other topics, with UFOs, even, where there are all kinds of reports from military sources that have said that there were unexplainable phenomena that they witnessed, and these things are also uh, made difficult to access. So, I mean, you may or may not believe in the truth of any of it, but you should have a right to be able to access information, to gain your own de- determinations, to be able to make your own determinations, and educate your own perspective. So it's it's such a challenge to navigate this. I'd love to hear what else, what opinions are around that, because, like I said, freedom is something that we get to defend, and it can be chipped away at very, very subtly and progressively. And in fact, that is what we see happening in our culture. And uh, it's kind of like the frog. And I hate this example, but we all probably are familiar with it, where you put a frog in water and slowly raise the temperature, and it doesn't hop out because it doesn't realize that it's getting hotter. And I don't know if that's true, and it's sort of a grisly example, but I think that that's what's happening in our culture. And now is a really important time for us to be alert to preserving our freedom and to speaking up about it, and to uh, to value it enough to defend it. So we went from freedom from the inside out and the outside in, because what it comes back down to is that the ultimate freedom is freedom of consciousness and freedom of thought, and the freedom to interpret our experience in a way that allows us to be feeling free rather than feeling victim or victimized. So I think that might be it for today. Talking about freedom on the almost eve of Independence Day. And well, actually, no, I'm not done, because we're talking also the notion of freedom in regard to COVID. Is should we have freedom to wear masks or not wear masks? And there's a growing population that says we should be able to not wear masks, and I don't know where I stand about that. I see that there's a huge threat to others if we're sick and we don't wear a mask, then we're jeopardizing the welfare of others. So where does it, and that's the vaccine conversation as well, is if I choose not to be vaccinated and then potentially I get sick, if indeed a vaccine could have prevented that. That's a big assumption, but if indeed a vaccine could have prevented that, am I a public health risk? Am I jeopardizing the welfare of others? And is it okay to restrict my freedom to preserve the freedom of health of others? So these are questions that we really, really, really get to engage in. I don't have an answer. I don't pretend to have an answer. I am engaging in the inquiry because I think this is one of the most important things for us to consider in this moment in time. And another thing to be looking at is, do we have the freedom and the right to have clean water, clean air, and a healthy environment? And if we do have the right to those freedoms, the freedom to breathe clean air, for instance, do we then have a responsibility to legislate the behavior of corporations that are not respecting or that are violating that right and freedom? So this freedom question goes very, very deep, and it's only by engaging in it rather than assuming that we have freedoms that we get to define what freedom is, that we get to preserve our freedom, that we get to really look at what our moral code is, and honor it, and be willing to speak up about it, because all of these issues are issues that are confronting each of us and that are impacting our lives in a very powerful way and will only do or only have a greater impact as we move forward. So with that, I I I think I am done for today. I hope that you are stimulated by this conversation and that you will really, truly, actively, consciously engage in this kind of conversation with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your networks, because this is incredibly important. And Dido says, tragedy of the commons is the name for the contradiction of individual benefit versus communal benefits. Dido, you are such a wealth of information. That is amazing. Very interesting. I didn't know there was a name for it. Tragedy of the commons. And it's the contradiction of individual benefits versus communal benefits. Well, I understand why it's called tragedy, because it's kind of one of those double-edged swords that we don't get to dismiss very easily if we look into it deeply. Good morning, Natalie. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you have been here the whole time. If not, we've been talking about freedom, and we're just about to wrap up here. And I thank all of you that have stuck it through this conversation. And again, encouragement to engage in this, because we really, really, really need to be talking about these things at this moment of time, and it's only going to become more important. And so, on that note, that wraps up the conversation. But I have a couple announcements, and I always encourage you to be checking out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, because it is awesome. And I want to invite you to join us this evening at 5 o'clock Eastern Time for The Broader Edge. It's a podcast that I do with three other awesome women. We have edgy conversations, and today's topic is the going from human doing to human being, and really talking about uh, creating a new paradigm for living on the planet that has possibilities and potential for shifting us out of the destruction that we have perpetrated on one another and on our planet. So that's at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, that this evening on Enlightened World Network. And also, we have, and I should make a shout out to my co-hosts. So, Dido, thank you for posting that in the comments, and that's awesome, Natalie. I hope you'll join us. Uh, so, my co-hosts are Terry Angel, Lisbeth Williams, Sheila Cash, and they're all remarkable ladies, and it's always an inspiring conversation. So please join us. And also, I have a podcast called Sustainability Now, and we have Thursday night movie nights. And tonight's movie is the economy of happiness, I believe. It's either economics of happiness or economy of happiness. I think it's economy of happiness. And I figure we all need more happiness, so you might want to come and join us. And the best way to do that is to go check out our Facebook page. And if you don't see a link there, what you want to do is go sign on our email list at sustainabilitynow.global. That's .global instead of .com. So Sustainability Now, and then you'll be invited to our movie nights. And on those, it's every Thursday night for our movie nights, and it's at 7 p.m. Eastern. And what we're also doing a lot of lately is airing interviews and that we've done with people that we interviewed, so that they're there for a live Q&A. So it's really exciting, and rewarding. And I invite you to join us. Really, people are making great connections. There are people from all over the world. It's usually a pretty intimate group, and we'd love to have you join us. So that's it, truly, finally, for today. And I'm here weekday mornings at 9 a.m. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I just thank you so much for being with me. Have a wonderful, wonderful day and great love, great compassion to you. Hope to see you again tomorrow.